Coming up, two Cowboys yeehaw to the sin bin. Wakefield do a St. Helens on St. Helens, and the Knights win the Battle of the Swords in the NRLW. Yes, hello and welcome back to the Sideline Chat podcast, a one-stop shop for rugby league. That's Mark Hendry this week as Connor Marcellus apparently clocked a producer high when he clearly didn't, and now he's been forced out of the studio for at least 1 week. So basically copying a 1 week suspension there for Connor. So that aside, we are now hitting the final round of the NRL Telstra Premiership before finals, which is next week. So my word, this last 4 weeks, the last month has gone really fast. It also has the whole season, mind you. But the first game on Thursday night, we have got the Parramatta Eels up against the Melbourne Storm. Now for the away side, we've got Tom Osborne, who is out for the season after he suffered a syndesmosis injury. So Chris Lewis is a new man on the bench, with Felix Kaufusi returning to the starting side, with Curran Kamika going to the bench. Josh King has been named startup lock, and Brandon Smith is on the bench, but they could swap on game day. Now, as for the home side, there's absolutely no changes to Brad Arthur's side, who beat the Brisbane Broncos 53 points to 6. Yes, you heard that right, 53 points to 6. The Eels absolutely destroyed the Broncos, who, as of late, have been very, very poor. And as I mentioned the last week, that like a month or so ago, they were in the top four, looking certain to be a top four finishing side. But now they're on the verge of missing out of finals altogether. So, and the Brisbane Broncos form has definitely gone downhill big time. And they were scoreless in the second half, with Branko Lease going over in the corner in the 29th minute. And that was it. And Tony Staggs obviously converting. But other than that, the Parramatta Eagles polled on 9 tries, with Mitchell Moses kicking 8 out of those 9 conversions. And he also got the 1 point field goal right on halftime. Now, generally speaking, the halftime field goal team usually goes on to lose this match. Well, this did not happen at all. Parramatta went on to go with the game. What was outstanding performance? And speaking of outstanding performances, Connor has selected Sean Lane as his standout player, who got 153 1 meters, 1 try assist, 13 tackle breaks, 1 line break, and 4 offloads. He's starting to hit form, back to his form, to where he was earlier in the year at the right time too. And those statistics show why those statistics, I should say, back up that performance, these performances as of late. But yeah, very surprising result in this one. Thinking would have been a lot closer, especially up for Brisbane State, as they really had to win this game and the next game to try and consult with, depending on the result of the Canberra games as well, to definitely lock in a top 8 final position. But since they've lost this one, it's going to be tough for them to win, and especially coming up against the Dragons. They really have to win this one. Right, Brisbane have to win against the Dragons, and Canberra will have to lose to the Tigers, which I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. But yeah, the rate that the Eagles are scoring these tries were all over the place. Tom Upperchick's try was just absolutely brilliant. With the straight, his second, not the first one, he off grubber kick straight. First try, sorry. Straight off the kick and grubber kick through nicely and like that there. Will Pennison's another brilliant try there. Makasivo scoring yet again. What game hasn't he scored this season besides when he was out? Even the captain, Quintella Singlet and double, Mitch Moses bagging on himself. Just an unbelievable performance there from Parramatta, and just absolutely in cruise control. from start to finish, with Brisbane not putting up much of a fight at all. Now, for the opponents, the Melbourne Storm, they went down to the Sydney Roosters, 18 points to 14 in Melbourne. Now, you don't see Melbourne move in Melbourne very often. But this game literally had everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything was involved here. There was punch-ups, there was pushing, I shouldn't say punch-ups because it actually wasn't a punch-up. But there were things close enough to it, which was push and shoves. And it was mostly on between Nelson Soft-Sermo and Victor Radley. Couldn't give names for a second. But yeah, it was on between those two. Jay Hargraves got involved as well, which is no surprise there, which he ended up being in the sin bin. But then Nestor Soft-Sermo never did get put in the sin bin. And he seemed to be worse than what JWH's was. Go figure that one out. Well, even that, Sofa Solomona has not got a suspension. He only got a fine, and that he really needs to start getting suspended from the NRL. Because I was Paul Kent on NRL 360. He was saying that 16 out of 17 charges, or most of the charges he has got against him over the course of the years, he's only missed 7 games in total. All the rest have been fines. So, and he keeps, to an extent, getting away with it and not missing much game time. So they really need to fix that up. Well, the Storm need to say, you need to cut this out. Otherwise, you've got to start missing more games. But they haven't been doing, the NRL haven't been doing that. So, look, that's up to the judiciary. They changed the system to try and make it, or with a grading system, try and make it better. But in all honesty, I think it's made it a bit worse from what I've heard. So that's up to you guys. Do you think the NRL judiciary system the grading of it has changed? It's changed, but do you reckon it's better than what it was last year? Was it worse than what it was last year? Better as in the grading system is better, or is it worse? I personally think it's worse, and so does. If you go on YouTube, it's on there with the NRL 360 panel discussing Nelson Soft-Sermo and his charges there. But back to this game against the Storm and the Roosters, the Storm had to do it the very hard way, but they just couldn't get over the line. I mean, it was an absolute cracker game. It had an early finals feel to it, and it certainly proved it was a finals game there. It had, like I said, sin bins, push and shove, very physical. It didn't even feel like a club game. It was more like the physicality of the game was like a State of Origin match, which, well, this year's State of Origin series was the most physical I can remember. But as for the Roosters, they did have Melbourne on the ropes. Like, they were absolutely dominating the match there. And Melbourne's clawed their way back, but just couldn't quite get there. So back onto this match between the Eels and the Broncos. I mean, sorry, not the Eels and the Broncos. Eels on the Storm. My bad there. Yeah. Storm will be looking to obviously end the regular season on a high, but so will Parramatta. And with the unchanged lineup for the Eels, that will certainly help that indeed. And also back on the Melbourne Storm list, we have got Jerome Hughes is out, so Cooper John's coming. So that's a key player missing there in what is another finals potential matchup or finals feel to it. Connor has gone with Connor has gone Parramatta Eels to win this one 1-6. I have gone with the Eels. Yeah, I've gone with the Eels to win this one by 1 point. This I reckon it's going to be an absolute blockbuster game and maybe potentially the game of the round. Now up to game number 2 of round 25, and we have got the Bulldogs up against the Sea Eagles. Now for the Sea Eagles, the team news is that KO Weeks is in at starting side, start at fullback with Koala shifting to the centre and bench Borovich back to the bench with Andrew David and Dylan Walker joining the starting 13 with Ethan Wilmore going to the bench and Josh Alloy dropping out. Now so the Bulldogs, Luke Thompson has been named amongst the reserves after missing last week's game due to COVID. Corey Waddell is back from suspension. Connor will be absolutely thrilled that Corey Waddell is back because we all know that Corey Waddell is Connor's favourite player. So he'll be jumping out of his skin. And that's probably maybe another week on the sideline if he doesn't clock, if he clocks a producer again. So he might not be back next week, depending on how he goes. If he how excited he is for Corey Waddell. He'll be definitely backing him to score a try, no doubt about that. Maybe the game-winning try. And Joe Stimson, so he comes back into the second row. Joe Stimson will then to the bench with Davida Penguin Jr. going to the bench after playing in the Bulldogs New South Wales Cup side last week. And Harrison Edwards and Josh Stuckey are the two players that drop out of the side. So let's start with the Bulldogs match up against the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. And well, let's just say the Bulldogs scored no points whatsoever, but with Sharks only winning 16 points to nil. Yes, it wasn't a big blowout score like everyone expected this one to be. But the Sharks had the ball on the string whatsoever. Nico Hines yet again had an outstanding game. But there's not that standout performance that Connor chose Matt Moylan as his standout player with 137 running meters, 2 try assists, 1 line break, and 1 goal line chocolate. He's back and he's starting to hit form yet again, like he has done. Well, when he's not injured, he played absolute brilliant season, Matt Moylan. But having Nico Hines there in halves has definitely helped him there. But yeah, the Sharks were in control of the match, and they are well and truly in the hunt to win the competition overall. Can they go that far? I believe they can, but it's still going to be hard to beat the likes of Penrith and Melbourne, and even the Roosters. Yes, even though the Roosters are low on the ladder, it's still going to be hard to beat them come the finals. As for the Dogs, they were unlucky to get a try there, especially Jack Avarillos, who got disallowed. But they do very well to hang on to the Sharkies and keep the Sharks under 20 points. And it could have been a lot worse. Well, the only thing the Dogs could have been happy about was Matt Burton's 40-20 kick and his towering form. We didn't see much of it, but when he did it, holy smokes, it was high. Paul Lockie didn't even get a touch on the ball, but I think it was Muratala was back there to sweep it out to Lockie Miller. Let the ball bounce. I would too, obviously, being a young fullback, not having many NRL games under his belt. It would have been a very hard take, and if he caught it and knocked on, they would have gifted the Bulldogs field possession there. As for the I'm a bit of overshot there. Now, as for the Sea Eagles, they also went down to the Canberra Raiders 48 points to 6. That was Sea Eagles have not, I believe, have not won a game since their controversial jersey back in the non-league round. That's just the record stuff. Ross Ruben Garrick, which he has been a good, really standout player for him, in absence of Tom Chiporovich. And yeah, Jackson Voyage also is out too, so that does not help their boys go well. But yeah, letting 48 points in their nation's capital is not good enough at all. The Rays got the result that they needed, and they did that in fine style. And they are now definitely keeping the finals chances alive. Now have to win against the Tigers and hope that the Broncos lose against the Dragons to make the top 8. Even if the Broncos win and Canberra win, I think the for and against is the better in favour of Canberra for them to sneak into the top 8. But I'll have to wait and see. With the Broncos being the first game, we'll have to wait until the result of this match, which is the first, which is easy. We have to wait for the last game of the round to see what happens with then playing the Broncos on the Saturday, and the Tigers raise the last game of the season. So it really had to come down to see what happens there. More like the Dragons Broncos game, because the Broncos lose, well then Canberra. I think regardless of the result. But yeah, Manly were absolutely nowhere at all in this match, and they were very, very disappointing indeed. And Canberra just absolutely stunned them. And what helped Canberra sting the hell out of the Sea Eagles was Hudson Young, who is stand-up performance. Chosen by Connor, who had 2 tries, 122 running meters, 5 tackle backs, and 2 line breaks. He is in absolute brilliant form at the moment, Hudson Young, and credit to him. Now, if the Eagles Storm game isn't the game of the round, which I did say it was, but then I just saw the otherwise, which is definitely the game of the round. At the newly redeveloped Allen Art Stadium on Friday night, this is going to be an absolute blockbuster match. Two teams that absolutely hate each other since pretty much 1908 when the league started. And this is how they line up with the away side. So Damien Cook is still sidelined with COVID, certainly severely affects. Havili goes in again at dummy half. Campbell Graham is out injured. He's been replaced by Jackson Paulo. And Cody Nicarima dropped to the reserves as Peter Marmazilla's taken his place on the bench. Builder homecoming for the Roosters. Victor Radley out with concussion, Daniel Tupou out with a groin injury, and Lizzie Collins out suspended. As sees Takihaha and former Moscow joining the starting side, taken over from Radley and Tupou, respectively, with Fletcher Baker and Terrell May on bench. And also with Moscow going on to the win with Tupou absent. Drew Hutchinson comes in to the starting side to start at centre. Now, these two sides last time out, the Roosters won in fine fashion. I know, I could say fine fashion, but it was just a 4-point win. But as for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, they managed to win 20 points to 10 over the North Queensland Cowboys. Now that game was an absolute cracker one in itself as well. It felt like it had finals credentials written all over it, but really South looked like they had it all locked away. Yeah, eventually they did, but the Cowboys did slightly come back at them, especially when Kyle Felt scored that magnificent try. That was definitely, I think, a try for the contender. They fought South forced Chad Townsend to run on the last tackle, but and passing out the Cole felt we put in a kick where they run out of the field, out of the field of play. He got back in the field, kicked the ball again, a perfectly way kick, and he just got there quick enough to put the ball down the in goal. And it was absolute scene. So you could say it was champagne or rugby league. It was just absolute with the try. And if that doesn't get tried, you contend. It does not in contention for try to you, then I don't know what is. But I think what cost Cowboys this match was the sendings to Thomas Hess and Kyle Felt. Other than that, they just couldn't quite get there in the end for Cowboys. I was thinking that with Tommy did out missing Scott Drinkwater being in the halves where they used to him at fullback and with Hammersley to do after at fullback. It was a bit out of sorts. It wasn't the spine that they've been playing with all years, so that probably didn't help their calls either. And the Cowboys' record in sticking isn't brilliant either. So they had a few things stacked up against them, and it showed. Outside was absolutely too good. Stand-up performance was Tom Birds with one try right at the end there, and 172 there was 2 tackle breaks, 1 line breaks, and 15 hit-ups there for the big boy from England. And already touching about the Roosters. This one, who knows who's going to win this one? It's an absolute flip of the coin. Connor has gone with a Roosters 1-6 victory. I have gone a Roosters 2-point victory. But this one could go into, well, it's really going to Golden Point, I reckon. I don't think it will, but it could. And it's going to come down to absolute wire there. Just quickly back on Eels Storm game. Eels kind of tipped one to win 1-6. I said Eels to win by 1. And the Bulldogs Eagles match. Kind of said the Bulldogs win 7-12. And I say the Bulldogs win by 10 points. Now for the first of the Saturday games, we have got the New Zealand Warriors up against the Gold Coast Titans. Now for the Titans, Philip Sumner is back after missing last week. He takes over from Brian Kelly, who has been suspended for a dangerous tackle. I'll get back into it in a second. Now, as for the Warriors, they have got Sean Johnson being that spot, getting a calf injury against the Panthers. Dylan Aiken is out for personal reason, and just Arthur is out with the squad. Wade Egan is out with back spasms. Marcelo Montoya and Rocco Berry are all returning to the side. I think I said that right. Yeah. Aiken, Arthurs, Egan, and Montoya and Berry are all back. So that means that Valia, Pompey, Posey, Lily, and Optu Kolo are all dropping out with Credit Bassett going to prepare for a few changes for the Warriors' final home game of the season and over in New Zealand as well. So let's start off with the home side, who went down to the Penrith Panthers 46 points to 12. There wasn't much to cheer about there, although the Warriors did score within the first 5 minutes of the match and score first. So that was an absolute shocker. Well, not shocker, it was a bit of a surprise, really, because no one would expected that as in no late try. But they were just heavily outclassed from there. Officially, minor presence there. I wrapped it up against the Cowboys, I think, the week before. So yeah, they officially got their minor premiership shield this time out in front of their home fans, which the fans stuck around to see their presentation of it and back-to-back minor premiers for them. For Gold Coast Titans, so So he put the standout player for the Panthers, Connell, was Brian Potter with 2 tries, 1 minutes, 7 tackle breaks, and 2 line breaks. He's starting to get back into the form he was before he was ruled out. Out for a little while, and he's an absolute danger man there. Now for the Titans, what was a tight contest? They beat the Newcastle Knights 36-24, with Brian Kelly getting sent off the field 11 minutes into the second half. So they don't do the majority of the second half with only 12 players out in the field, and they managed to do it. Yes, Newcastle come back at them, but it still wasn't quite enough for the away side. But it was a very solid performance there from Gold Coast. They have been playing solid, but just can't generally quite finish games. But they did finish this one very well. I'd say AJ Brimson here, absolute crack of a game, which is a perfect segue. Let's see, Connor reckons had a brilliant game as well. 2 tries, 137 run meters, 5 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks, and a goal line dropout. Is in the team that the team is there on paper, but they just can't quite be consistent enough, and they shouldn't be battling for the wooden spoon. They're a team that can be in the top 8, should be in the top 8, and someone like AJ Brimson is a player that can help them do that. But they really need a forward like David Feeder, Marcel Lowry, and like that to really help them drive the team to consistent results. And Bo Fermal's another. He's had a brilliant season this year, and I think he bagged another double in this one. He's been one of the shining lights for them this year. No, both of them only got 1 try, not bad. But Greg Murray got a double for Feeder, got 1, Tanner Boyd got 1, and AJ Brimson got the last 2 tries for the win. Yeah, but I don't know. Hopefully the season gets turned around for them next year. Like coming up against the Warriors, they could still win this one, but we just don't know. As for the Knights, they scored within the first minute due to Edric Lee as Gold Coast from the kickoff kicked it out on a full. So not a good way to start the match, but they finished it off well. Other than Daniel Saifidi tries, there was Dom Young over in the corner, and Danko got with 2 late tries to try and do the comeback, but it wasn't good enough. I mean, missing 2 conversions from Tech Sweet didn't quite help either. So it could have been a lot closer, and Knights could have maybe potentially won that match, but it's just too many errors for them, like has been all season long for them. In what was a close contest, they still could have put on the points if Brian Kelly had not got sent off. But they still did well enough to hang on and score a couple of tries themselves with a place, and also very good effort there. The Knights are just, we just don't know what's happening with them. They tried with the extra man advantage, but did not work out at all. I'd say if I believe it was Jacob Safi, if his try was allowed, the Newcastle put a double kick through, it got a bounce over the top of Jaden Campbell, who got fingers to the ball, so that it was a 60 another set coming in favour of the Titans and of the Knights, sorry. And so Feedy grabbed the ball, and it looked like he grabbed it, set up to the bunker as a try, but as a no try, my apologies. But it looked like he did get the edge of the ball down, but the bunker thought otherwise and went with the on-field decision of no try. But that try was allowed. That would have been definitely another try of the contender there. Now back into this matchup we have here between the Warriors and the Titans. It's surprisingly a flip of the coin. Both can win it. Warriors tend to play well over New Zealand. They've only, since they've gone back to New Zealand this year, which hasn't been many games. But they've only lost one game. I think that was to Melbourne, which was always going to be a hard task to do anyway. Connor has said the Warriors to win this one 7 points to 12. I have said the Warriors win this one by 6 points, and that will be an absolute close game. I could say. I'm not going to say blockbuster, but it will be a close matchup indeed. Now, the Dragons versus the Broncos in the second Saturday night fixture. For the Broncos, we have got Adam Reynolds has been named despite picking up a head knock last week, while Tom Flegler is also expected to play after going to hospital with a throat injury. He might be all clear to play. Pat Carrigan is back in suspension. That will really help Brisbane and really need him. And he's back at work with Selwyn Colo, also back after being rested last week. Tyson Gamble is at 5'8" alongside Reynolds, as Ezra Mann has been dropped to reserves. Bronco Lee is out with a hamstring injury, and Kobe Harrington is out with a head knock. So that means Deloise Hoyter comes in at the centres. So a few boosts there for the Brisbane Broncos. What about the Dragons? You may ask. Well, exactly the same 17 with Andrew McCullers being amongst the reserves. He could be a late inclusion, but coming back from knee injury, you have to wait and see what happens there. Now, I already spoke about the Eels beating the Broncos. What about this much? The Tigers and the Dragons winning this one by 2 points, so 24 points to 22. In what you think would have been a walk in the park for the Dragons, considering whereabouts they are in the ladder and where the Tigers are. But it was actually a very solid game indeed, and it comes down to a Zach Lomax penalty goal inside 30 seconds to seal the victory for the Red Bee. It was an absolute cracker of a game. I just can't believe how close it was, but I thought we would have gone on with it a lot more. But I mean, the Singins, we were just absolutely done with Singins. We had Cody Ramsey go off for a professional foul, and then we also had Jack Bird go off for mouthing up at the referee. So initially mouthed off at the referee who blew a penalty. Let me get this right. The penalty was given, and then Jack Birdmouth was saying something to the referee, which the Tigers got another extra 10 metres out of it. And then as Jack Bird was going back to the line, he was still saying stuff to the referee, who heard it and then sent him off. So that did not help our causes at all, but hey, we still got there in the end. For the Tigers, though, let's say Tom Freebarn, he had an absolute crack of the game. I believe this is only second or third game in NRL, and he already scored a double. And they were back to back to one in 24th or one in 33rd minute. But Tigers were up 16-6 at half time, so they looked like they could have gone on with the win. But I don't know what happened. They pretty much dropped off, I think. And they got a new Brown scored the first try. And then when that was not long after Ramsey was in the bin. And then Tom Freeburn got the second try while Ramsey was also in the bin still. And then he got the try when Jack Bird was off in the bin. So the Tigers, 3 out of 4 tries all come when the Dragons were in when there was 2 Dragons players in the sin bin. It was quite astounding. Adam Dewey slotting over 3 from 4 goals. The only try that didn't come with a sin bin out for the Tigers was Jock Madden, who went it was a very long range try. He had the legs and speed to get there. Whether or not he could have kept on going, I'm not quite sure, but he did extraordinarily there. As for the Dragons, Jaden Stewart opened to try scoring count, followed by Tao Moka and Zach Lomax and Jackson Ford to pretty much lock up the scores. Was that one? Zach Lomax also getting 3 from 4 conversions with 1 for 1 penalty. They also 4 from 5 in total. The standout player was Jaden Stewart from Connor, 1 try, 222 1 6 tackle breaks, and 3 offloads. And what was that is, like I said, a very close game. It shouldn't have been as close as it was, in my view. And Connor might have potentially agreed with me if he was not suspended for the week. Now, this is the following game, the last of the Saturday night games of the regular season. We have got the Cowboys up against the Panthers in what is another absolute blockbuster match right here. The Panthers, there was heaps of out. And when I say heaps, I say like 13 changes. So let me run you through them all. Ivan Cleary, the coach, has chosen to rest Dylan Edwards, Brian Toto, Steve Crichton, Isaac Targo, Taylor May, Jerome Luai, Moses Leota, James Fisher Harris, William Kickout, and Isaiah Yeo. He chose to rest them while Coruscant and Lenu are out with injuries. So, this also means that Liam Martin is named amongst the reserves and could make a return after he was rested last week. Scotty Sorensen is back from a calf injury in his second row, while regular bench players like Matt Eisenhuth and Mitch Kenny are in the starting side. Charlie Staines gets a run at fullback, and Sanua Taruva is on the wing, while Thomas Jenkins makes his NRL debut at centre, as does Liam Henry and Jack Cole on the bench. There's a heap of change there. You'll also got Robert Jennings in at centre, Christian Crichton on the wing, Kurt Falls and Sean O'Sullivan in the halves, Lindsay Smith at prop, Mitch Kenny at dummy half, Jermaine Hopgood at lock, Sonny Luke, Eddie Blacker are also on the bench. There's a heap of changes for the minor premiers and the minor premiers, so they've got the luxury to do it. As for the Cowboys, Tom Dearden is amongst the reserves and could come back from surgery on a ruptured testicle. That's why he missed around 24. Scott Drinkwater has been named at fullback and Hamza Tibula at 5'8". But he will go back to the bench should Tom Dearden play. Cohen Hessel missed the game 2 suspension, so Ruben Cotto joins the starting side, and Griffin Mean, who has been recently re-signed by the Cowboys, will come on to the bench. Well, I mentioned that Panthers dominantly over the Warriors, and the Cowboys narrowly lost there. Oh, depending on what you classify narrow, I mean, 10 points is not narrow, but it's not a blowout score. It's in the high middle range category. For this one, I don't know what way it's going to go there. Who knows, really? Well, just back before I get too carried, keep forgetting to say who we predicted. Connor has predicted the Roosters will win this one 1-6. Obviously that one. The Warriors Titans. Connor says Warriors 7-12. I say Warriors by 6. Dragons Broncos. Dragons to win 7-12 for me, Connor, and Dragons to win by 14 for me. For this one, Connor says the Cowboys to win this one 13+. I'm going to say the Cowboys win this one by 16. Purely due to the fact of how many outs that Penrith have. It's basically a reserve grade side, nearly, compared to a full strength side for the North Queensland Cowboys. I think this is a spot also for the Cowboys to try and finish second on the ladder. They are currently running third, with the Sharks running in second. So it's all still to play for. I think Sharks will be absolutely sweating to see how they'll be definitely watching this game to see if the Sharks get a high final or not. But the good thing is that it's Cowboys win, the Sharks have to win against the Knights, so they'll still be watching with interest though. But yeah, look, Pence Cowboys Cowboys 13 plus from the pair of us. There's really not much else to say about this one. It should be one-way traffic. In right that Cowboys been playing all year. It's been quite surprising as everyone had him for the tipping for the wood spoon, and they're well and truly on top four. So things do happen in rugby league, and it's funny. Now, for the first of the Sunday games, we have got the Newcastle Knights at home to the Cronulla Sharks. Sharks, Delphinukin is back amongst the reserves as he to overcome a rib cartilage issue. Matt Ikabalu is back from a groin injury, so Kale Ira dropped out. Connor Tracy will be arrested until the finals. For the Knights, Anthony Milford is out with a rib injury, so his Knights career is over and done with before he goes up to the Dolphins for 2023. So Phoenix Crossland is at 5-8 with Chris Brandle joining the bench alongside Jack Johns. Matt Croker moving to the starting side with Suaso Sue dropping out. No signs of Kurtman or Mitch Barnett, who the latter has played final game for the club as he departs for the Warriors next season. Well, the Sharks being the Bulldogs, already discussed that one. It's just a clinical performance there from the Sharks, and the Dogs did well to keep them under 20 points. As for the Knights, they try coming back at the Gold Coast Titans, still down to 12 men for the majority of the second half, but still wasn't enough there. This is yet another halves combination for the Knights. Connor and I might knuckle down in the off season, trying to a half combinations. I mean, they've had over the past couple years, similarly to what we did with the Brisbane Broncos and the Canterbury Bulldogs last season. Last year, for the season's gone by, we might have to do that for the Knights, just probably for this season alone to see how many they've had. I know they've definitely had a few over the last couple of years. Just need to keep the halves consistent. I know they can't help with injuries that like, but they signed Jake Clifford, who was going well, then he's just quietly gone out of the side of the formal injury. It's probably a big factor in that. You just need to be consistent. That's the most thing that Newcastle needs to work on. Yes, they start off the year 2 wins from 2, and since then it's just been a long road downhill with a couple of wins throughout the season, but that's what it's been like for the last few years. You just really need to be consistent and work together as a team, because they have played finals footy, but under Adam O'Brien, but we just need to keep playing it and chip away at it. But anyway, I'm not the coach of the Knights. That's all up to Adam O'Brien. As for the Sharks, they are in fine form under new coach Craig Fitzgibbon at the start of the year. Nico Hines has to say he's one of the buys of the season, if not the buy. It's going to be hard coming against Chad Townsend to the Cowboys or Adam Reynolds to the Broncos. But out of those three, Hines and Townsend seem to be the better two. I'm not saying that Adam Reynolds is a bad player, but the rate that Broncos have been falling as of late, it's the Cowboys and the Sharks at the moment. For this match, Connor has gone the Sharks to win 13 plus. It's a very easy victory. I'm going to say the Sharks to win this one by 40 points. They're going to absolutely destroy the Knights in at Newcastle. And for the final game of the regular season, we have got the West Tigers coming up against the Canberra Raiders. The Raiders side, Nick Kotrick is back from the groin injury, so Hopper White goes to 18th knee. And what is the only change that come home with the win? Sorry, one at home over Manly. As for the Tigers, James Palmer is back for what could be his last game. 9 for the Tigers for his career. So Zane Musgrove goes to the bench. Cameron Marlowe is back on the win after being out with a groin injury. Luke Garner been named at centre in his return from a head knock. Asuka Power and Junior Palga drop out altogether, with Tyron Peachy getting another shot at the bench with Jacob Little going 8th man. And Kitoni Toga is out. Luke Brooks is over and out due to calf injury, which it looks like he's going to be out. And he's been out since round 19. Looks like he wasn't going to return. It's simple. Raiders have to win this one if the Broncos win. But if Broncos lose, well, the top 8 is all Canberra. So really, it could come down to the last game of the year, but we just don't know what happened there at all. Let's just say we both say Canberra to win this one by 13 plus. I was going to say by 30, kind of says by 13 plus. Now for the NRLW, I've done a bit out of order than what we usually do, but I sure kind of might mind. Anyway, I'm running the show today, not him. Well, not us as a whole. So the first game is the Roosters versus the Dragons. Have got a grand final rematch back, at Allianz Stadium, to really be the opening of the new stadium there. So for the Roosters Dragons, there's no changes from last week's win, with rookie winner Andy Robinson, which is still in the back line after a solid performance. And also the Roosters are unchanged for now, with Jess Surges likely still have some work to do for fitness after leaving the game to a hamstring issue last week. Sarah Togatuki, Jamie Fressard, and Sam Bremner failing to finish last week, but have been named to play. The standout player for Connor for this matchup, or the last matchup for the Roosters, which against the Brisbane Broncos, when the Roosters absolutely destroyed the Broncos 28 points to 8. Standout player being Ray C. McGregor with 168 run meters, 2 tries, 3 tackle breaks, and 2 line breaks. The Broncos have now suffered back-to-back losses for the first time in their history in the NRLW, which is not like them at all. And it's the start of the 2022 B season, as we like to call it here at Sideline Chat. And they will really want to try and hurry up to start winning games, because the season ain't that long in the NRLW, not until next year. We're introducing 4 new teams. The reigning premiers have done it again. They've continued on from their form on the back of last season, which was earlier this year, 2022 A season. Shows on the why they were the premiers, and they've gone and done it, showing why they are quite capable of doing it. I don't know what happened to the Brisbane Broncos. I'd say they also haven't adapted to life without Millie Boyle and Tamika Upton. They've been the 2 biggest losses for them. They've still got Ali Brigginshaw there, but Brigginshaw, Boyle, and Upton were the 3 big key players out of Brisbane for their success in the first 3 years. But now you take 2 of them out, and they seem to be struggling a little bit. So whether or not they can turn that around, we have to wait and see. And the Roosters are just absolutely way too good for Brisbane. And like I said, Racing McGregor just dead enough for Connor. For the Dragons, just bear with me. I'll just make sure it is the Roosters and Dragons. Yes, it is. The Dragons coming victors over the Eagles, 16 points to 10. the Eagles played really well in this matchup and stuck it with the Dragons, but in the end, they just fell too short in the end by 6 points. So a converted try was all it took for them to lose. But they shouldn't. Yes, Parramatta at home, so they shouldn't go back to the sheds with their heads down. I say they should keep their heads high. They put in a solid performance against a team like the Dragons, who have continued on their great performance at the start of the year for this 2022 B season, with back-to-back wins also, and continuing off the 2022 A season for them as well. That are absolutely outstanding. The Dragons, yes, they won, but they still had to work hard for it, though. I mean, I think they were in front at one stage. Well, in the end, they were. The Eels were in front at one stage, and then the Dragons come back and lock the scores up. It was also a really try for try match. But in the end, it was the Dragons that come over with the big dude. The standout performance for corner from the Dragons was Paige McGregor with 2 tries, 131 metres, 2 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks. Some of the boys that both the Roosters and the Dragons scored tries are unbelievable. It just goes to show that they are at the moment, the 2 most informed teams in the competition, with not long to go, really. Like I said, it's only, I believe, a 5-game season plus 2 finals matches, so 7 games in total. And that will be expanding next year, which will be excellent to see. Because the rate that the women's game is going quicker than the rate of knots. Now we have got the second ever Queensland derby between the Brisbane Broncos and the Gold Coast Titans on Saturday up at Smallsdale Stadium, so at Redcliffe. For the Titans, Tasman Gray is named to start after missing through injury the first couple of weeks. She takes place of Zara Canfield, who was suspended after taking an early guilty plea for a high tackle against the Knights. And as for the home side, Kelvin Wright has swung their axe big time. So changes are Amy Turner, Nita Maynard, and Crystal Tamura are out. So Turner is replaced by Shakia Tungai, who will play on the wing, with Janet Chapman named at centre, which is the 3rd different position she'll have played this season. Lavina Gould replaces Maynard at hooker, while Hannah Larson is the new player on the bench. So, will these be the changes that the Brisbane Broncos need to get their boost going? As we just previously mentioned, going heavily down to the Roosters and then losing week 1. We had to wait and see if Kelvin Wright's done the right thing or not, and if they can bounce back or not. Because basically, if the Broncos don't win this one, they can't make finals. I believe that is correct. Could be wrong. 25 games. I think the Broncos are yet to play the Dragons and Parramatta. Dragons and Parramatta are 2 teams that the Broncos have to play. So 2 games left after this weekend. So they really need to win this one to try and win. They basically have to win the rest of the season if they want to make the short final season. The rate they're going, it doesn't look like it. For the Titans, though, they look promising against Newcastle, but just couldn't quite get the edge at all. going down 16 points to 12 over the Knights. And when I said in the intro of the Knights winning against the Battle of the Swords in the women's, well, that's what I mean. Titans, Warriors got the sword, and the Knights generally have swords. So that's the reasoning behind that. And the Knights came out on top 16-12. So a very narrow 4-point victory there. The Knights standout was Tamika Upton with 241 running meters, 7 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks, and 1 offload. She has been a very, very good signing there from the Brisbane Broncos there for the Knights. Back to this matchup. Connor has gone Broncos 1-6. Look, I'm actually going to say Gold Coast Titans to win this one by 6 points. Just purely based on how the Titans have played so far this year compared to the Brisbane Broncos. The Titans are the better side so far this year. Oh, and back to the tips of the Roosters and the Dragons. Connor says the Roosters win this one 7-12. I don't think the margin is going to be as big as its grand final rematch. I'm going to say the Dragons win this one by probably 2 points in what will be a very competitive match. And for the final match for the weekend in Newcastle, we've got the Newcastle Knights up against the Parramatta Eels. For the away side, no changes with Taylor Preston made start after joining the Southern Reserves last week, with fullback Gale Fulton named after failing to finish the match last time out. As for the Knights' unchanged lineup, with the win over the Gold Coast with in-change players Emma Manzilman and Taylor Pendleton amongst the best in round 2 for the Knights, with Upton running for 241 running meters, as I just mentioned here. Connor's gone for a Knights 13 plus victory. That is a big victory score there for the Knights. The Eels, it's still a little bit hard to get a read on how they are going so far this season. Yes, they come close to the Dragons, and I can't remember they lost in round 1 or round 1 or not. But still trying there, but without having Matty Studden there, who they didn't re-sign, I think is what's costing the Eels so far this season. Yeah, the Eels lost in round 1 too, so they're 2-0, so they're really another team that have to perform in this match to try and make the finals if they are to make it. But I'm going to say the Knights will win this one by 12 points. It should be a Knights win, but you never know, the Eels might come out and cause an upset. So the NRLW ladder after round 2, we have got the Roosters, Knights and Dragons all on 4 competition points, with the 2 and 2 wins. The only differences being the for and against, which is very, very tight indeed, especially between second and third, the Knights and the Dragons. And then you got Titans, Eels, and Broncos, who are dead last and ladder. With the for and against, also no wins between those 3 sides across the 2 games. So it's just them the for and against for that one. Now, as for the NRL Men's Premiership, Panthers are all set and done and are home comfortably. The Sharks are second, with the Cowboys third, and could potentially regain second if they win and the Sharks lose. We've got the Storm in 4th, Eels 5th, Roosters 6th, Rabbitohs 7th, Raiders 8th, Brisbane 9th, Dragons 10th, Seagulls 11th, Bulldogs 12th, Knights 13th, Warriors 14th, Titans 15th, and the Tigers 16th. So really, if the Tigers want to avoid the win stream, they have to get the win, a massive win over the Canberra Raiders, and the Titans will have to have a massive loss to the Warriors for them to get the spoon. But I think it's all heading the Tigers' direction at this stage. And that wraps up all the NRL and NRLW content here. If you like what you like this video and all of our other ones, subscribe to our channel if you are new, so you can get notified and if you do want to get notified, click the bell so you do not miss an episode of the podcast or of our Rugby League Game 4 gameplay career mode. Follow our socials at Facebook and Instagram. It's Sideline Chat, with Twitter being at Sideline Chat. Enjoy the final round of the NRL Premiership this weekend and the third round of NRLW Telstra Premiership. Stay tuned for part number 2 of the Sideline Chat podcast.